Pro or not makes a difference too.
It does make a difference.
It's right here. Never mind.
So, I think this is 3 o'clock. Should we get started?
The recording starts right on that.
Recording started now. As long as the recording matches my watch and not whatever that says. Hi, I'm Debbie Ginsberg. I'm the Educational Technology Librarian at Chicago Kent.
I'm Alex Ravenel. I'm the Associate Director of the Law Lab at Chicago Kent.
So, who here is a lawyer? And who here, when you went to law school, thought that was about the end of math that you would be doing? Whether you liked it or not, you just thought we were sort of done with the math thing. So I know a lot of people, when they went to law school, they went, we're going to do all the things that we're really good at, like reading and research, and they were going to write things, and they were going to present, and all those great things, because when they lied. So this is the Alex and Debbie show. What are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about what law schools are doing with STEM, mostly focusing on tech, but some other things besides, while they're learning law. So it's not just the law of something, but how the technology itself works with the law, what they need to know about the technology themselves. We're going to tell you that, yes, we know about that ABA article, but there have been good results. And we're going to show you about some of those. And collectively, I hope we can all talk about what we can do in the future. There's more to be done. So, back in the long, long time ago of the 1990s, when I was a judicial clerk, I was working for a judge, and I had a case. And in that case, a lawyer said, well, this contract is invalid, and the reason why this contract is invalid is because it has 2 unknown variables. And if you had 1 unknown variable, that would be fine. But with 2 unknown variables, there's just no way you can solve any numbers in this contract. This contract is invalid just on the face. And I started looking at this, and I said, wait a minute, I know about 2 unknown variables. If I know just one thing about it, I can't solve it. But if I know 2 things, which there were in the contract, I can solve it. Anyone know what X is? X is 10. Y is 20, which meant that I put something like this in my memo for the judge saying, if you look at this, and you do an algebraic equation like this, you can solve both variables, no problem. If there's no issue with this whatsoever, the contract is valid for that and other reasons besides. And the judge said, absolutely not, math does not belong in a judicial opinion. All right. So I found myself wondering, are we really living in a world where law and STEM are just in 2 different places? Law is over here with its research and its writing and all the law books, because it's in the 1990s and Westlaw and Lexis kind of exist. And it's STEM, science, technology, math, are over here, and it's going to be rare if ever these 2 things will meet. Just math and engineering and all that just doesn't belong in any of this that they're working in whatsoever. From judicial clerkship, I was practicing in legal aid. And in legal aid, I discovered there was math.
Yeah.
I had to know it. I worked on a lot of divorce petitions, and even in legal aid, there are assets that need to be added. In one case, there was another lawsuit attached to it that we weren't dealing with it, but in order to account for it in the divorce, we had to calculate the damages that were likely to be in that suit. It's falling apart. We're having lots of meetings, and I've got to read financial reports. Math, as you see, is something I already knew about. I learned about that in high school. I kept that knowledge in my head. Great. Then there was the other thing I had to know. Anyone practicing ever have to know medicine? So, were you trained in it beforehand, or were you just dumped in it and go, here, figure out these documents that came from the doctor's office, which is what happened to me. All my clients were HIV positive. I was the AIDS advocacy attorney for Cook County Legal Assistance back when such a thing existed. So I had to figure, does Social Security regulations apply? Back to the damages on that one case that were medically related, and I had to fit it with other regulations besides, without any preparation whatsoever. That was fun, but still, Merck Manual helped. But I realized all this actually goes together with law. Law is not this separate thing. So it's been a while since I've practiced, back when that computer was the latest thing on the planet. Any of you guys who practiced before, were there other things that you saw that practiced back in those days that you were thinking, oh yeah, STEM does belong in taxes, and then you got math there, so it all belonged, but we weren't really being taught it. And at this point, it's not just those things that matter. If we're going to look past 1999 and jump, 20 years ahead to today, what else are we seeing? Well, we're seeing lots of instances where our graduates have to practice with clients who are using project and process management. So our graduates have to do things like understand the client's business needs, why they're using this, what the vocabulary is. Also, if our graduates incorporate some of these ideas into their own business, they'll save time and money. So that's another thing that they have to know in the STEM area. They have to know data analytics. We've seen a lot about data analytics, good or bad, about predicting judicial behavior. Our grads have to understand what those analytics are, what they mean, how they fit into things. They're going to be asked to look at analytics having to do with industry trends from their clients. They're looking themselves. Analytics can be used when building contracts, so they're going to have to know something about that as well. Artificial intelligence came up today in the keynote. This continues to be something people have to know, not just for discovery. We've seen it for legal research, legal processes, and of course businesses are also very interested in exploring artificial intelligence. So we're seeing that within the day-to-day lives of the people that we serve, not only is math important to them and medicine, things that we see before 1999, but all these things that we see today, from analytics to artificial intelligence and beyond. And what we've got to remember is we are teaching our students to know the technology. They don't have to necessarily know it as intimately as an IT staff, but they have to generally know what the technology is and know how to keep learning about it. Because the main job of a lawyer is to talk to their clients and represent them. They're sort of a translator between the client's world, the lawyer, and the legal world, and in order to do that translation, in order to have those conversations, they're going to have to know enough about the technology so that they can talk to both sides of things, both in the client's world and in the legal world, and bring everything together. Not easy. We see a lot of law and classes, but what are we seeing to make sure that our students know things beyond just the law and? You don't have to necessarily read all this except for the thing here that says online dispute resolution. So what are we seeing, how are we seeing law schools respond? We've seen law schools respond to the other things I brought up. You can take accounting in law. There's ways that you can do that. We've got schools that have now, plenty of schools offer medicine in law, even combines JDs and MDs together. And we're also seeing Corinne brought up a few of them in the last presentation earlier today. This is one of my favorites, online dispute resolution. We have, your law school probably has an ADR class, right? Does your law school have an ODR class, online dispute resolution? Maybe not. This one's being taught this summer and also in the fall. And the thing that's really excited about it is being co-taught. And one of the people who is teaching this class is the co-founder of Moderia.com, which is one of the biggest players in online dispute resolution. So as clients say, I'm involved in an online dispute resolution issue and I don't think it's coming out the way I want to, can you answer my questions, is this legal? Or if a client says, my business wants to follow, students who get a class like this will have a really good foundation for answering those client questions when they get out of school. So just even having individual courses are a great start. Many law schools have clinics. And the important thing here is the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Clinic. This isn't Boston College, but many law schools have entrepreneurial clinics. We've got one in Chicago, Kent. Berkeley has one, Harvard has one. Does your school have an entrepreneurial clinic? A lot of UP people do. And this is a place for your students not just to do the law but to work with people who are working, say, in tech companies in Boston, to learn what that vocabulary of their business is, and under guidance, learn how to do that translation into the world of the law for the clients that they're working with. So they get that hands-on experience. So we've got courses, we've got hands-on experience, and we're seeing that in a lot of schools. We are seeing certificates. Lily has cybersecurity and data privacy. And these include, there are a lot of schools that have this certificate, or a lot of schools have certificates in doing different things with technology. But what I like about this one is you've got a lot of law and stuff, like internet law and trade secret law and white collar crime seminar. which teaches about the law part. But one of the required courses for this is the Cyber Risk Management and Incident Response, which means that that student who takes that course is going to learn something about what is a cyber attack, what's involved, how do we classify them, how do we recognize them, how does IT react, what is the terminology, what are the regulations too, and basically it's training that student to be part of an incident response team. Talk about a really powerful set of skills that a student can have. When they get this certificate, they can say, look, either your law firm's going to need a security response team because it's not if but when, or law firms are being hired to help with that. So having students who have that kind of skills will be very valuable to the job market going forward. So that's 3 different responses we're seeing from schools. Finally, several schools like Suffolk, MSU, and we'll talk about in a minute, Chicago, Kent, have whole labs where students can develop portfolios. They get to work with many different kinds of clients. They get to experience lots of different kinds of classes. So it's not just this siloed certificate or individual courses. A lot of things come together under a single program which gives resources to help develop the students in a more comprehensive way. And this is going to be important because as we were hearing in the keynote, of course, change is what's going on. And so as law schools adapt to this change from things that are the law and include things the law plus hands-on experience with math, the law plus hands-on experience with cyber incidents, the law plus hands-on talking to clients, the law plus hands-on building stuff with AJ Author, which you'll talk about in a second. That's going to get them the context of what they need to practice, what they need to be successful students, what they need to be successful lawyers, and give them the foundation to keep learning this stuff in the future. Because everything I just brought up, it's not going away. All of it's going to just get added to, and it's going to be the responsibility of our graduates to know it. So, are these working? Do you think all these programs are working? Not sure. Got that AV article, says it's not. If you want to know if something's working, one of the best ways to find out is to have a lab, a place for experimentation, a place where you can see what works, what doesn't, try out different things. At Chicago Kent, we got this law lab. Alex is the associate director. Alex, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in your lab.
Thank you, Debbie. So she mentioned I'm the associate director of the law lab, which I help run with Professor Dan Katz. Essentially our legal innovation and technology division within the law school. But lest I give you the impression that we're the only people at the law school doing legal tech, I want to shout out our law librarians. So Debbie, I see Emily in the audience as well, and any law librarians at other schools here, because they're absolutely integral to our mission. They interface a lot with our students. They're very well known to them, and so to the extent that you can leverage your law librarians and toward the mission of teaching STEM, legal innovation technology at large, please do so. This is our website. If you want to learn more about us, I won't go too in depth about our program, but check out lawlab.com. We also have a video channel, which I'll briefly show you later, which are videos from our programs, our conferences, basically trying to give a sort of an open source flavor to the content that we produce for our students. We start with 2 propositions at the lab. Okay, one is it's not sufficient anymore to know the substantive law, right? And that in no way minimizes its primacy. Certainly it's foundational to legal education. It's the reason many students come to law school. But what we're saying is you need to have other skills, in particular skills that inform you about legal markets, right? And I say markets because it's not a monolithic legal market. Add value to a particular organization that were not necessarily the case. That was not necessarily the case, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. And so we want students to be as prepared as possible, as equipped as possible for professional development after graduation. And the other proposition is you don't need to have a particular STEM background coming into our courses. It's one of the first things that we say to students to sort of allay their fears about signing up. We essentially want students to take a flyer. Just take a flyer, right? Take a class. If this is not for you, that's great. Hopefully you'll reconsider at some point, maybe take another class. But if it's not, that's fine. We just want you to give you a flavor of what the classes are like. But if students want to go farther into the program, we have the Legal Innovation and Technology Certificate, which I'll talk to you about. Sorry. So these are our core classes within our certificate program, our JD certificate. It's 18 credits, and these are the required components of our certificate program. Legal Analytics, the Justice and Technology Practicum, which I'll talk to you about in a bit, that incorporates A2J author, so shout out to Callie. Practice and Professionalism, which is our ethics class with a business of law, tech of law overlay. LPM and LPI, highly important. And we have an experiential requirement, which is often fulfilled through an externship or a clinic. But we give students the flexibility to meet this requirement in numerous ways. Legal analytics. I think this is perhaps the most salient example of, quote, doing math in law, or one of the most salient examples. And at the risk of sounding recursive, students need to know about analytics, not necessarily so they're the ones actually plugging in numbers, although we want students to be familiar and certainly comfortable with doing that, but also just to have conversations, meaningful conversations with stakeholders in their organizations about how they can use metrics to better inform the services that they provide, and just to have an understanding of how to think probabilistically as lawyers, right, and not deterministically, or how to think systematically about law, treating law as a process. And so this, in many ways, is the sort of the first class that students learn about when they're thinking about taking one of our Legal Innovation Technology Certificate courses. I know there's a lot to take in here, so I'll just sort of give you the highlights. What we want to do is prepare students to be knowledgeable consumers of quantitative information, right? And there's a ton of it. Right? I don't need to sort of rehash all of the discourse about how law is becoming more data rich, but insights are not always plentiful, right? But we want them to be comfortable dealing with numbers in a way that can help better inform their practices. Some of the learning outcomes that we have in this class are just understanding basic probability statistics. This is actually one of the classes where some students will have some, right? We'll have maybe a conditional probability example, or we'll do something, just maybe even something as simple as measures of central tendency, right? Those are some of the things in which students actually get some hands-on math in, but that's not even a bulk of the class itself. As I mentioned before, we want students to think about law, the practice of law, the delivery of legal services in a particular way, and this is one of the tools that they can utilize. Do some basic data viz, better understand methodological limitations of experiments, right? How to properly set up an experiment and test your hypothesis. So there's a proliferation of new products and services that in some ways utilizes analytics, right? Or relatedly, AI and machine learning. And so we want students not necessarily to know every single thing about this particular vendor or how to even use any of these products, but just know that they're out there and what they're used for, and how if they go into for example, a law firm that utilizes this, they'll know, at some point in law school, I encountered this, or at least knew about it. The framework through which we teach this class is through the R language, but there are other similar classes that teach in Python, and we're trying to, we do teach through a certain framework, but we're trying to teach legal analytics through sort of an agnostic lens, right? You can use any sort of programming language that best suits your students' needs, but just take a stab at it, right? Just try. And so that's legal analytics in a nutshell. I'd be remiss if I did not mention this class, because this actually predates our certificate program. This is our Justice and Technology Practicum, which utilizes A2J author, so shout out to Callie. If you weren't at the last session talking about A2J author is an expert system with a visual interface that walks a pro se litigant down this virtual path toward a courthouse, with the outcome hopefully being a completed court form. One of the great things about teaching this particular class, to sort of harken back to something that was mentioned in the keynote, is this is a class that's ripe for getting students to experiment and to explore and to collaboratively learn. So by way of example, when we're dealing with a particular court form, there's a discrete form that they would have to automate. But oftentimes there's not one way to get a completed form. So I'll talk to our students in this class about, well, why did you ask questions in this particular 5 questions to fill out this one field, whereas your classmate took maybe 2 questions, right? And so there's a lot of sort of design thinking in this class. So this is an example of an A2J guide interview with the guide avatar who will walk you down this path. There are signposts along the way. If you want to learn more about this, you can talk to Jessica or visit a2jauthor.org. But it's a fantastic program. John Mayer mentioned in the last session that this is a class that does not require coding, right, in quotes. So it's another sort of barrier that we're trying to overcome. Students are afraid that if you take a class that you utilize a program like this with decision trees and conditional branching, that you somehow need to be a computer science student. You don't have to. And this, in a lot of ways, simplifies that process. So I talked about understanding laws of process, talking about plain language. How do you develop content for self-represented litigants in a way that is understandable, consumable, and will get them hopefully to the desired outcome, which is hopefully a completed court form. And then in this class, I give students an opportunity to propose a future project in the follow-up class, which I teach in the spring, for an A2J guide or some project that they want to work toward. And so this gives them an opportunity to propose a project in an entrepreneurial way. I don't really give them a lot of parameters around which to design their guide interview. It really is a way for them to spur creativity and give them an opportunity to actually explore a legal topic that they want to, right? Practice and Professionalism is our ethics of law class, but we teach this through the lens of the business of law and the tech of law. The reason why this is important, because as many of you know, in the model rules, tech competency is the responsibility of lawyers, right? And not only that, we want students to think about their role as legal professionals and lawyers in a way that actually allows them to leverage all the tools at their disposal. And so we talk about, if you are a solo lawyer, right, and you want to start your own law firm, is that something that you necessarily learn in law school? And oftentimes, learning in law school is confined to the classroom, which doesn't propose any limitations by any means, but you're not really learning about, okay, so what's a P&L statement, right? Or how do I have a budget that essentially gets us to where I need to start up my firm? And so one of the sort of math deliverables in this class is to do a business plan. And a business plan corresponding with a pitch that they have at the end of the semester. So that could be either for a solo law firm, it could be for a legal tech startup. But the idea here is to give students an entrepreneurial project, give us sort of the work behind your project, so show us that this could actually be viable, and then pitch it to us. So there's marketing, there's branding involved, there's, of course, as I mentioned, the math part in terms of budgeting, but then there's also this idea of, as a lawyer, you need to be comfortable doing oral presentations, not necessarily for those who may see themselves not in the sort of trial setting, but in any sort of oral communication mode, right? So you could be talking to a partner, you could be talking to stakeholders, clients, and the idea is to just get students comfortable with that. And then importantly, we review use cases of applied tech. So we try as much as possible to leverage our network of affiliated professionals, have them come and speak to our students directly, right? So there's only so much that myself and Professor Katz can talk to the students about until they say, well, we want to see something in the industry. We want to see people using this tech, and we want to hear directly from them about how it's actually adding value to their work. So we'll bring in folks from any number of places, from legal aids to large law firms, mid-sized firms, legal consultancies, and sort of spanning the entire spectrum. LPM and LPI, which is becoming increasingly important, not only because it helps students develop skills in terms of finding what the root cause of issues are, but helps them overcome some of the log jams within their institutions. Importantly, in this class, students learn process mapping, root cause analysis, but those things will get them toward a certificate at the end of the class if they pass the certification exam. So they can actually come out of this class with a yellow belt in Lean Six Sigma, which is a nice little add to their resume. And so we bring in our colleagues from Cypher Lean Consulting to help teach this class. So they're, again, hearing directly from people doing this work on the ground. I don't have a slide for this, but of course, we have a blockchain and cryptocurrency class because, right, every student wants to get rich on cryptocurrency, which we are not providing investment advice in that class. But it's another one of the ways in which we're trying to respond to both student demands and also the needs of the industry, right? We need to have students that are comfortable talking about blockchain and crypto, investment in cryptocurrencies, and also importantly, the underlying blockchain technology, which Debbie has done a lot of work in as well, doing some research and talks on that topic. Some of the sample projects we've done outside of the classroom, we've done A2J guided interviews outside the classroom. We've done a project analyzing A2J author usage across the US, so the data project there. We recently wrapped up a project on a portal to assist defense counsel on immigration-related issues. We've also done some crowdsourcing research. And that's just the flavor of some of the ways in which our students can actually apply the things they learn in class. I talked at, one of the first things I mentioned was preparing students for professional development, preparing them for life after graduation. So we want to be able to show that our students get jobs because they went through our program. And so these are some of the jobs that our students have gotten. And you'll notice that these sort of span the spectrum of large law firms. We have legal aid up there, legal tech startups. We want to try to meet students where they are, right? We're not trying to force them down a particular path. I'll have students come in and talk to me and say, I don't want to practice law. I went to law school, but I don't want to practice law. I know that as a one-up. A few years ago. And so I want to be able to meet that particular student where they are. If they have any prior experience in, for example, project management, we want to be able to help them work toward a job in that particular area. And if you'll notice in the industry that there's a proliferation of other sort of types of what people are calling JD advanced jobs, that can accommodate these students, right? And so these are some of the places that are landing, and hopefully we'll add some more up to the slide in your channel, the Law Lab channel. It basically holds all of the videos that we do at our conferences. We try to have at least 1 or 2 conferences a year where we bring in folks, and these are all sort of TED-style talks so that you can easily consume these in about 10 minutes or so. In part to amplify our messaging, but also gives us a way to show to our students, look, we're serious about this, and we're serious about this because we want you to have connections with the people that are coming to our law school and giving these talks, and we're putting these videos up for you to consume at any point, right? It doesn't have to be in the classroom. You don't have to watch these in class. You can consume these anytime you want. And we want to model for them that there are places for you if you don't necessarily want to practice law in the traditional sense, right? Again, tying this back to math and STEM, why are we talking about the STEM in this context? Because in a lot of ways, we have students that either have prior experience in those areas, want to know more about them, and then also it helps sort of form the foundation of these new skills. And they're not really new skills. I mean, these are skills that are required now, right? And so we often hear about this is where the law is going. This is where the future of law. Actually, it's actually now, right? That these are things that are happening now, and we need to be able to respond to that in a meaningful way. And so that's a little bit about what we're doing. Law schools out there that are doing similar work in this area, so shout out to them as well. This is a shared mission of ours in legal academia is to make our student experience more meaningful, not at the expense of, again, not at the expense of traditional substantive law training, but giving them a more holistic, giving them a more comprehensive training set that is attuned to industry needs. Debbie?
All right. Leaving us now with the question of where do we go from here? We have the path that we were going down, and a path that that we've been going down for a long time. It seems to be working a little better. Again, we've got our lawyers, and who, as a lawyer, was asked to do something, maybe STEMmy, that you had no prior exposure to as, yeah, like what?
I thought this was just going to be a show of hands.
Profession. Me and the first guy have.
Dealing with the divorce that turned into 7 RICO cases, bankruptcy. Husband was a shareholder in 4 closely held corporations, a boat building company, and 3 crabbing vessels out of Seattle.
How much did you know about crabbing vessels at the time?
I'm sorry, I
How
knew
much-
nothing about crabbing vessels. I knew nothing about accounting. It was there was some really interesting banking issues. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So you get to learn that on the job with no prior experience. Now let's go the other way. Maybe show that some of what Alex is saying is actually true. Did anyone go to law school, have a class that exposed you to something other than the law of X, but also included something experiential that then you were able to use? Or tell me.
Legal research?
Ah, of course. Okay, there's that. Did anyone take a medicine and law class and said, "Oh yeah, then I had to read medical records"? Your schools offer them, and those students have yes.
I took a forensic sciences class as
Oh,
part
did
of
you
the
take
criminal
that one?
defense clinic, and we went and saw autopsies at the Cook County morgue. So that was intense.
Okay,
Yeah.
probably not something used with Callie later, but
Right.
I know Callie lesson.
Yeah, I know what people look like on the inside now, so it's good.
Yes, so do I. Remember, I was being a clerk. Those cases wound up on our desk with full photographs. Again, I had to figure it out with no prior experience. So yes.
I did military law, which was really military and the law,
Uh huh.
and I ended up doing an internship with JAG.
Wow.
And during that, you not only had to know military procedure, there were times when I had to learn how a car's engine worked, so I could handle civil type cases involving
So,
faulty car repairs. But I mean, it's not what you would expect necessarily.
so that would be a suggestion, perhaps, for a military law class is to include something about military procedure. Or
And it did. It incorporated.
oh, so you got some of that. So you were able to then add that. Like, okay, I
Right,
learned
yeah.
the law plus that procedure stuff that you were able to apply later.
Right.
And this is what we're looking to have our students do, is to have them, all right, we're going to teach you something about the law, but then how it connects to the world. So when you're out there, you're not sitting there going, okay, what do I know about accounting? Oh, I've got some experience with accounting, or at least I know someone in my law school did, and maybe I can ask a fellow classmate. So what are we seeing now? We keep talking about, our various newish tech, blockchain. Who's here? Their schools have a blockchain or a crypto class of some kind. We're seeing more of those. Ours do, because we have stuff crypto. We tell you not to invest. My $20 of crypto that I invested in 2017 is now worth $55 today. Woo! Just killing it, aren't I? But the point there is not that this investment thing, but that. I could ask you who here thinks blockchain is a fad, and it doesn't matter because clients out there are concerned with it, and therefore they're looking for lawyers who can help them figure out where that boundary is between blockchain and crypto and the law. Maybe they want to create an initial coin offering, and they're wondering, is the SEC going to get involved? Maybe they want to create blockchains to store other kinds of data, and they want to know what the regulations are. They might not be concerned with the crypto part at all. Or maybe they want to know, okay, the next thing that seems to be on the horizon is DLT. What's DLT? Anyone know? I know you know.
No, I don't.
Distributed ledger technologies. So that's what blockchain and everything else, sorry. You gave me this look like you knew. That's what blockchain and everything else comes under. Blockchain is one kind of way of distributing information in a secure way, and it's just one of many different kinds of possibilities. I think you guys talk about it in the crypto class. So this is the kind of thing where, if we, this is just one example. Do you guys have another example? Like, I love blockchain, so I put it on here, but what other kinds of technologies do our students have to know not just the law of, but the law and? I'm not sure yet, right?
I mean, we have Professor Lori Andrews who's doing things like social media in the law, and she's working with, the general counsel at Facebook sometimes when she's writing books. There are obviously things like that where whether this turns into something that's handled by company policy or whether this is something that's handled by regulation is still developing.
So, yeah, that's things like that.
Would you count Fortnite and their usage of people's dance moves, which is IP, but sort of not copyrightable, but it's a newer phenomenon that they're stealing?
I could see that being incorporated into an IP class. If they're not playing Fortnite, they may have youngers in their family who are. Yes?
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things, right. Imagine, I'm sure, you haven't seen classes in your IP that are addressing the Internet of Things. What are these things? How do they work with the Internet? What issues are you seeing? What does it mean to be an Internet of Thing? What are the privacy issues? What's being leaked? We get things like that at the ABA Tech Show all the time. To give you another example, is anyone at Tech Show this year and saw Kenton's drone presentation? That was fascinating. So Kenton's a library at Oklahoma, and he's talking about drones and how the drones work. And this is how it functions, and here's how you can get sensors on it, and here's how there's my drone, and here's how I flew it. It was all great. Then he brought in a prosecutor who then started to explain the law of drones and what they could collect and what they couldn't collect and the kind of data that they got and how they used it and what was permissible and the law of flying drones and where they could be flown and where they couldn't. So this is the kind of connection that we're seeing is, there is the technology, there is the law of, they are not inseparable. It could have just been an ABA Tech Show thing just on the law of drones. Still would have been fascinating, but not nearly as useful without Kenton's presentation on the actual drone technology itself. Ethics, of course, is big. We talk about it all the time. We know, we've talked about it 6 billion times, there is an ethical duty of competence. What is it, 36, 38 states now requirement? What's the number now?
36.
36 states. 2 states now require technology CLE. Anyone know if there's any states coming up next? I bet there are. What does it mean to be technologically competent in the law? Does this mean technologically competent, like I know how to use my computer, I know how to use my time management system, I know how to do redaction? But there's another aspect of competence too when we're talking about lawyer competence. And that came up when you and I were talking about our cases. You had to be competent in RICO. I had to be competent in medicine. We had to be competent in things like math, Fortnite dance moves, all of this other stuff. We not only had to know the technology that was on our desktop that let us do our jobs from day to day to day, but also we had to be competent in what we were representing to, as lawyers, what we were talking to our clients about, and then how we were interacting with the legal system. So if I messed up and misread the records, I would not be competent in giving my competency they deserved. So that part is another part. This is why this whole tech and the law becomes more important, why STEM and the law becomes more important, why it's important not just to have blockchain classes, but medicine classes, military classes, everything that can give students the idea that if they aren't going to necessarily learn it in law school, maybe they've taken the blockchain class in law school, but then they come out and they're doing something with medicine, but they've learned how to learn that technology. They've learned where they need to start. They've learned what the bases are, what that process is when they have to learn something that they haven't seen before. Because as Alex said, computer experts in every single class, right?
No.
You're getting people who know nothing about this. And they in your class, how to start from nothing to competency. So it's not just necessarily that they specifically know how to get competency. They have to know, I don't know anything. How do I learn something? And that's important as well. Also, so that's the second part of the ethics side. Lines of the ethical what it means to be ethical and to be technologically competent. Haven't really seen much from things like the ARDC in Illinois or other states. Have you guys seen anything saying like, this lawyer was not technologically competent and therefore they were disbarred? What?
Not yet.
Not yet, but that's coming. Keep an eye on it.
There's something about somebody who didn't use the e-filing properly.
We've seen a few things like that. Oh yeah, that came out recently.
Yeah.
But I don't know that, I think that was not, that was a very specific rule about like filing times and not, you weren't technologically incompetent, but you thought your secretary did it and then your secretary thought you did it and then that was just a mess up. But yeah, you can get in trouble, but that wasn't like, that if I remember looking at that, it wasn't, they violated that particular rule. But we're waiting for it. It will come out as this becomes more clear and something, again, our students have to know. It also gives us a chance to emphasize our students, again, as what happens in the law lab and in many labs and in many other schools besides, that technology, if not going to get perfect, does give us a chance to provide access to justice in parts of our constituency, and to look out for places where we can use that technology, to use your knowledge of law, use your knowledge of science, math, technology, engineering, to bring that access to justice where it can't be already, and to serve your community in that way as well. So does this mean lawyers have to be coders? Anyone here think that lawyers have to be coders? I think we're all pretty convinced that it's not the case. Does it hurt for a lawyer to be a coder? You think it hurts for a lawyer to be a coder?
Might be. I mean, coding is not it's a skill. It's nice, like saying should all techies learn to become lawyers? I mean,
No.
some should.
Some should,
learn
yes.
a little bit of the law. They shouldn't learn.
Yeah.
They should definitely should know
Yeah.
what they don't know.
Right. Except they should know what they don't know, which is very important. That's like the most important thing is they should know what they don't know. So they don't have to know coding. They don't have to be able to build apps. They don't have to be able to program in Python. They don't even necessarily have to solve calculus equations, but they have to know when they're recognizing something they haven't seen before and learn from there. Because as I keep saying, the job that I had as a lawyer, that those of us who are lawyers had, that our graduates are going to have, whether they're practicing lawyers or doing something else, is to be that translator between whoever they're working for and the legal system. That's what that skill they're bringing in is. So traditionally, we focused on doctrine, we focused on legal research, and now we're asking them to learn so much more. Not just the things that help them get their day-to-day done. I love teaching students the magic that is the instant table of contents, and like, whoo, that's great. But there's more that they have to learn. They have to keep learning about what it is they don't know already and how they're going to learn it so they can translate that information between their clients and between the law itself. So when they are looking at medical records, they know what to do. When someone says, I want to know if blockchain's going to be something that we want to do, you as a lawyer know what to say. Someone as a transaction, they have a lease and they want to incorporate some automatic checking into it. What's the best tool for that? Students. But you guys are Cali people. I don't, when I said there's going to be no math, they said there's going to be math. You didn't care. You all know math. I assume you all know math. But that's our job as people who do love tech, who do love to learn and have that skill of learning new tech, of being passionate about it, to bring it to the other instructors, the others, to our students, so that they practice. They understand what they're really getting into. Because I think it's safe to say that pretty much anyone who's graduating law, they're going to have to learn something about science, math, engineering, technology at some point. And to let them graduate thinking otherwise, I think does them a great disservice. So my question then back to you is the question I asked a couple of minutes ago, which is where do we go from here? Alex, I'll give you a first crack at it and then see what other ideas you guys have about how to approach this big question.
I guess I'll respond to that sort of a high level. I think going forward, what we need to be able to do is provide avenues for students to ask questions, to give them opportunities for exploration, to find out things that they don't know, right? Sort of this idea that we talked about, knowing what you don't know. And then giving them a comfortable space for them to be able to sort of curiosity, right? Their creative curiosity. Like I said, I'm having increasingly more conversations with students who know with 100, so let's talk about, being probabilistic, with 100% certainty they'll say that I don't want to practice law. But then we also have students in our classes that do want to take the traditional path and practice law. And we're trying to, like I said, we're trying to meet students, you know that you're going to be a practicing lawyer, or you want to be, for example, a legal solutions architect or a legal project manager. We need to be, these conversations apply to any of those areas. And so I think the first step going from here is just to have that initial conversation with your students, allay some of their fears. Like, I don't have a STEM background, that's fine. Many of your classmates will not have that background. And we're, in sort of the vein of the keynote earlier today, we're learning together, right? And so give them a space to do that. One of the things I actually want to do at some point is to maybe have a class which is built around like just a sandbox, right? Give a student some, like I said, and I'm sort of tinkering with that in my Justice and Technology Practicum 2 class, which is essentially, here's a problem, I'm giving you very limited parameters, sort of loose rules, come up with something, right? In that class, I teach it through the lens of A to G author, but I know in some of the other classes that you all are teaching, you're using some other tools, right? Give the students that space to be creative, which is counterintuitive to how law students think, right? They're, in a lot of ways, they're very rigid, risk averse. We're trying to break that mold. So I guess that would be sort of my crack at your question about where we go from here, is to give them a space where they can feel comfortable doing these things.
You had your hand raised, am I right?
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if now's the right time, but I'm torn between competency and being conversant in something. My feeling is that you need to be more conversant than competent, that you need to be aware and you need to know. But I don't need to be the expert across the board on these things. And there's a threshold that you cross with the LPM. You get a recognized certification.
Right.
But in your practice and professionalism, if you're walking them through that, is there something at the end, or are you just conversant in that?
It's a great question. I think in many applications, the goal is to be conversant and to have meaningful conversations. For example, in the legal analytics class, we teach students R, but do we expect students to be experts in that? I don't think that that's necessarily our goal. We want students to be able to recognize a problem. So this even goes back to some foundational learning skills of issue spotting. Is this a problem that is ripe for a tech solution? And if so, sort of pulling from all the different resources that I've gained from classes that are, for example, in our Innovation Technology Certificate, and to be able to say, okay, I have the competency to address that issue, but if I don't, if that's something I was interested in further developing after the course, then I at least know where to go. Or I have a colleague that is more conversant, has more competency in this area than I do, but I need to be able to go to them and explain the problem. And if it is something that needs to leverage a tech solution, I can at least tell them that and then let them go from there.
Right.
So I think there's an interplay of both. For some students, they're going to want that deep competency, but for some students, they just want to be able to know enough to be able to have meaningful conversations with their colleagues and other stakeholders.
Right, because this is why we teach them things like networking and collaboration, so they can have at least that ability to have that conversation. And it's similar to what we talk about desktop technology. If I'm working at a firm where I've got a lot of people who handle my desktop technology for me, I need to know enough to be conversant. So I'm telling someone, please do this, I'm telling them in a way that makes sense. For most lawyers, it actually has to be competency, or they're going to be very frustrated in getting their desktop technology to work and getting through their day-to-day operations. Versus if I'm working with a client who wants to know something about blockchain, I have to be conversant, A, enough so we can have this conversation, B, enough to know that I might need to seek some help from someone else, and C, this is something that came up again in the keynote, which I think is really important, enough to know that perhaps there might be some BS going on, and as a lawyer, I should know, oh wait, this client is either A, giving me something that's gonna go nowhere, or B, really needs some help in understanding that where they're going and what they've been led to believe is true just is not. So being able to recognize both what's working and what they want, and when it's not going to work and someone's trying to sell them a line, that's another part of being conversant. At least conversant is sufficient in most cases for day-to-day work, less so for, general legal work, unless that's your main area. Like if I was, if I was going to continue to do those Social Security cases, I would need to be competent in legal tech.
I will say, just as a follow-up, I think framing the objective as being conversant in a particular area will help with enrollment, I think. For any of the schools that are thinking about starting a legal innovation tech program, I'm aware that we have a bit of an advantage at Chicago-Kent because we have a long-standing tradition of utilizing technology and preparing students to use technology both in practice and also in learning. But we do have a lot of students who come from different backgrounds and but for us saying to them that we're not necessarily trying to make you an expert in this, you're not trying to get a master's in computer science when you take this class, they would not otherwise take that flyer, as I mentioned before.
And one thing I'm going to go back before I get Emily, I mentioned that one certificate in cybersecurity. They have to be conversant so they can have the talks with the techie people and with the regulators. Emily had a question on
Yeah,
point.
I was going to say the issue of conversant versus expert. I think part of it is not teaching them how to be competent as experts, but teaching them just enough of a story to know what incompetence looks like. Because if they know what that is, that's a lot more motivating for a lot of the students and we'll teach them what not to do versus teaching them that they have to do it. So when Debbie and I go into the first year legal writing program and teach them how to use styles, I will use a lot of stories when I'm teaching them something like that because I want the concept to get through more than the details of how to use the word interface. So I tell them things like, oh, this is what it looks like to take way too long on a document. None of you have time to do that. That's incompetence. Or if you set up a document that's supposed to be a smart document that uses information and you have the wrong client's information in it, then that's incompetent. You don't want to be that guy. All of those don't be that guy stories. That's what I have students coming back to me later and being like, yeah, so I know if I ever get into that, I'm not going to do that. I don't need them to get into it right now. I do need them to know that they need to get into it to get there.
Right, so again, conversant that eventually leads when necessary to competence. Other questions, ideas, things that you guys would like to see law schools do, plans that you have that you want to share?
I think we had a question on this side. Okay.
We kind of touched on this. I'm at American University in Washington, D.C., and piggybacking off of Paul Ohm, who teaches us at Georgetown in coding. And we had students, he had roughly 100 students, I think, that signed up for this class.
Sure.
10 TAs. We offered it one semester, we had about 25 and looking to expand it even further.
We teach coding too, to students who want to know it. It doesn't hurt to know it, but it's not vital. Because there was lots of movement for a while that said, oh, law students need to know coding, and if they don't know coding, then they can't be competent lawyers. No, law students who do know coding, sure, though, as you pointed out, could get them in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, we do have a class, programming for
Yeah,
lawyers, that teaches Python.
Python, yeah, that's Richard Warner's class. So yeah, it's popular. People, they want to know it. That's the thing, is they want to know this. So actually, on the way over here, I don't see any of my Northwestern people here. So on this tiny plane, and I get off the plane, and suddenly I realize on the tiny plane were two people from Northwestern, Jesse and Stefan, and I didn't even know they were there. And they started telling me about the time that they had to teach AI. And Jesse taught the law of AI, and Stefan said, here are some AI things that you can build with. And by the time class was over, those students were still there playing with the AI so they can see what to do. They want this hands-on experience. They want to know how the tech works. They want to know how to do the math. They want to know metal technology. They want to know how to do a Fortnite dance. They want to know coding. They want this experience along with the law. This is something that they are demanding. This is something that they want to see. That's why you're seeing so much great enrollment in your classes. So, this is something we'll continue to revisit in the future. We'll come back. We'll see, that 80 articles says, oh, they're not getting jobs. you are seeing them get jobs, and is anyone else, what are you guys seeing? Are you seeing your students who know just a little bit more technology get jobs, or is it not making a difference, or you can't tell yet? Not sure? What?
We absolutely are.
Okay.
We have students who have jobs at firms that they would not have been at those firms without the additional training they've had.
Exactly. So excellent. So we're seeing that kind of thing happen. So I guess our jobs now, as legal educators, to go out is to continue to look for these opportunities. I got my little low-hanging fruit. We still have that to go for, but we can also reach up high to include as many of the different possible skills that our students are going to need to be conversant and competent lawyers once they graduate and once they become successful lawyers. Because successful lawyers make successful alums, and that makes for happy law schools. Any further questions, or is everyone ready for a snack? Snack! Thank you, Alex. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for all your input. And now I'm going to think about the Fortnite dances for some.
They did. I mean, they absolutely. This is the There's two
Well, and you're the senior professor of technology. Alex is part of the lab today. That was fascinating. Emily and I doing the embedded librarian thing, we just see her with embedded librarians. Instead of teaching separate classes, every single one of class. Yeah, we have competency topic and really good at well, no, we teach sometimes bringing people in. I'm like, this was a fascinating class. This is nothing. So when she says like, you don't want like I went to the area to talk about copyright wrong games on it. And besides that, they seriously. Like every answer they came back with was like, why would we care about that? Like you can't copyright a restaurant. That's so subjective, there's no way of measuring it. What you just ate versus what you ate tomorrow. I mean, versus how much you are. Exactly. I like that. Yeah, they keep, the professor just trying to break things. Somebody tried to train somebody trying to make a specific shape of it. Meanwhile, and they were like, yeah, but what if you like are just growing a loose burger and it turns into that shape? It was like, when it's going to be shaped. Hi, I hope that got on camera. But yeah, I'd like to see. I think we're at a if we did a basic session with the folks here, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's one task.
Oh wait, yeah. I wasn't. Okay, for some reason I was just stuck as like the I'm like, that sounds great. How do I find the time to do it?
Well, now, so just pressing the process.
It's actually just that was
But there are a number of even a 15-minute lecture in class.
I know it's.
I don't know what you're doing.
I mean, I've been driving Chicago, so not in this location, but
So that slide,
we get it's a break. And I like getting into the first year class because
which is the
we know that there's
arm
going to
of
be especially with our evening class.
So they'll go in and
I've had people who are
audit
legal sections.
any number of organizations.
There's nothing I can
Here's a particular friction-laden.
With the cause, they do it professionally.
And so that's one of the
It's great, actually. I like to